Chapter 2, A New World of Work. Listening 1, The Perfect Job.
Today, I would like you to join me in a thought experiment, a problem-solving technique that predates the scientific method. Thought experiments are not conducted in the physical world, but rather in the mind. In ancient Greece, philosophers, such as Socrates, used thought experiments to find solutions to all sorts of problems, even those that might just as easily have been solved by a simple experiment. It was considered a kind of noble mental gymnastics to do so. Today, our uses of thought experiments have different purposes. You might explore ideas with a thought experiment because an actual experiment is not practical, such as having students intern at 100 different jobs to gauge the influence on their choice of careers. Similarly, an unethical experiment can be safely debated, such as the idea of forcing a group of people to take on jobs that they hate, simply to observe their performance. Thought experiments are also used to examine the impossible, or at least the improbable, such as the lives and jobs people would have in a vegan society in which all animals were freed from having to work or produce food for humans. No more eggs, milk, or meat. Our thought experiment today is to investigate a work-related hypothesis as a way to identify the attending parameters and consequences. Here is the hypothesis. Everyone in the world can have a perfect job. Please, take a moment to reflect on your perfect job. If nothing comes to mind immediately, write down a few options, or the general areas in which you might like to be employed. While you're thinking, let's set some parameters. Let's agree that there's no such thing as a single perfect job that suits everyone. For example, many people might like to lead an important company, but would ultimately object to the stress of great responsibility. We should also recognize that people's ideas of a perfect job change over time. Being a surfing instructor on a tropical beach might be an ideal job for a few years, but not necessarily a gratifying career for 40 or more years. Similarly, we tend to expect to grow and be promoted in our jobs, learning skills at one level that allow us to take on challenges at another. In this way, change itself is an important parameter. Let me share what I once thought would be my perfect job. Traveling the world with little more than a camera and a computer creating magazine travel articles. What made this a perfect job? Here we establish broader parameters. The fictional job had independence and intellectual stimulation. There would also have been a high degree of autonomy, particularly in terms of flexible hours and locations of work. But it's no longer my dream. Why? Priorities change. I now embrace and appreciate routine, and more importantly, my older self now takes pleasure in the company of family, friends, and colleagues. It's another parameter, beyond the thrills of perpetual tourism. There are emotional rewards in working with others whose companionship you enjoy and whose ideas and skills you respect. Of course, respect goes in both directions. You want to be respected in turn. We often respect those with exceptional skills, such as astronauts who show bravery in the face of extreme danger. So let's consider exceptional skills as another parameter. For example, I might dream of being a symphony conductor, but my inability to read music makes achieving that job completely implausible. In a perfect world in which we each had perfect jobs, we would all still need specialist skills. But what if your skills were so limited that you could find only menial work that made you unhappy? Or, for every menial job, is there someone somewhere who would love to fill it? As I am speaking, I imagine many of you are considering other parameters, and money is likely to be one of them. But if you had the perfect job, would money matter so much, even if you were only paid enough to live? Many people make the choice to devote their lives to the service of others. In other cases, we generously compensate those with specialist skills, from doctors to top entertainers, while underpaying those who do many of the most dangerous and dirty jobs. Is this fair? I ask because in our perfect world of perfect jobs, we can see a major consequence: an inability to find people willing to do the most dangerous jobs, such as firefighters and police officers. There are also dirty jobs, such as cleaning sewers, that may not be anyone's first choice, yet such jobs are necessary to keep the rest of society functioning. Here our thought experiment pushes us back into the real world. Economics suggests that supply and demand are at work, and those with the most specialized, difficult, or dangerous jobs must be given special incentives, such as high salaries. In other cases, jobs must be in such short supply that the option of a dirty job, like cleaning sewers, seems a good option. Political science points to certain governments' socialist policies that pay for the educations of skilled workers in exchange for control of their work parameters, including location and salary. Psychology suggests that a sense of altruism, the selfless caring for others, often found among religious and charity workers, can override the usual focus on one's own worldly concerns. So, it's time to evaluate the outcome of our thought experiment. Can everyone in the world have a perfect job? No. I'd say we need to reject our thought experiment's hypothesis, not only because of the consequence of many important jobs going unfilled, but also because a simple desire for a particular job cannot overcome key parameters, particularly those to do with skills. Does this make our thought experiment a waste of time? The answer is also no. In going through the process, it is clear that as an individual, you don't need to consider the larger consequence of some jobs going unfilled. You only need to be realistic about your own skills and options, and, within the parameters, identify your perfect job.